We're back at Trailblazers, and we've got Josh Hirschey here. He's the co-founder of Timeless. You know Brian Kaplan from Philo.
Yes.
So, fun fact, Brian and Josh grew up together. They were 15 years old, and are you guys best friends or just friends?
Yep, best friends.
One of my best friends.
We were in each other's weddings, so I guess that classifies as best friends, right?
That's amazing. And so now you guys are both in cannabis.
Yeah, amazing.
And is that a coincidence, or was that kind of like influencing each other in some way?
Probably a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Cool. So Brian talks about Timeless all the time, literally.
He's a great proponent
He's out
of ours.
there talking about the brand, how cool the flips are. He's like
he's our brand ambassador.
Yeah.
He is your brand.
bit.
He is your brand ambassador.
And he wears our merch all the
I
time,
know,
so
he
he's like an
does.
advertisement for us.
He really
too.
did.
I mean,
So-
I grew up with also Rocky, the founder.
Yeah.
And what I've seen you guys really do in Arizona has been super impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us about the brand. So how did it start? What have you guys been doing?
Sure.
Talk about your consumer. Like who is your consumer?
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Yeah, it's great to be here with you guys. Great setting.
Yeah.
So yeah, my partner Rocky founded the brand and also grew up with Brian and I and best friends with us since we were kids as well. Founded the brand in 2012. Actually, originally in 2010 as like a lifestyle streetwear clothing brand. And originally he had a shop called Timeless that was a Supreme resale shop, way before like Supreme resale is what it is today.
Yeah.
And then we went medically legal in Arizona in 2012, and we had some friends that we grew up with that also were doing early extraction in like Oregon and the Pacific Northwest, and taught him how to do that. So really launched in Arizona in 2012 with like maybe one of the first vape brands in the not just Arizona but in the whole industry. It was very crude, like emptying out e-cigarettes and filling them with very crude oil. But over the years, continued to really develop the product and the quality of the product. But always from day one, like we were in that market that you see like in the East Coast now where there's supply and demand, and there was more demand than there was supply, so you could pretty much sell anything. But I think there was always the vision that at some point it's going to become competitive. And when it does, you either are going to have a brand that people love and are loyal to, or you're going to just continue to drop your price to try to get consumers to come to your product. And the vision always from day one was let's do the things now to create that brand loyalty. Between and a lot of it pulled from the streetwear industry and the Supreme industry, with limited flavor drops, the flip cases, the artist collabs, the local collabs, and really a lot of it was, we all grew up in Arizona, and so we knew the cool places to go and the cool artists to collab with, and so it was very natural for us to create a brand. Yeah, Arizona's the best state for cannabis.
West Coast is the best.
Yeah, but over time, I think. It was very inane with us to be part of the culture of Arizona, and that's why we feel like really gravitated toward the brand in Arizona. Yeah. And fortunately, we were able to build a leading platform in Arizona, and as we look to say, hey, how do we keep this thing growing, and how do we have a unique opportunity to build the national brand? We can take this great base we have here in Arizona, and we can develop new brands in Arizona and incubate them here and really work the kinks out of them. At the same time, we can use Timeless, which has become a bigger brand, and launch out into other states. And we've launched into 5 states, and we have big aspirations to keep going.
What do you feel like is the biggest the biggest reason Timeless has been successful in Arizona? Kind of in one sentence. Like, what would you?
One sentence.
One sentence.
Or a couple.
Okay.
See if you can
Yeah,
do
give me
that.
that. One sentence is a little tough.
Actually, maybe one word.
Yeah,
No.
one word.
One word.
Look, I think that, like I said, I think we really clicked with the culture of the people in the state, right? We grew up there. We knew the right places to go and the right places, the people to do things with, the collabs and all that. So it felt very local and very culturally relevant for that market. And I think as we went out and expanded to other markets, that was really the trick, is how do we become a national brand, but really still feel local in every market we went into. And we knew we had a playbook to really engage with the consumer, but we realized, hey, if we're going to go in these other markets and feel the same way we feel in Arizona and have the same success, we got to find great people in those markets that have that same connection to the market. And we've done that by hiring great GMs in each market we go into that really grew up in that market and understand it. And then they can take our playbook and all the fun stuff we've done in Arizona that's made the consumer in Arizona want to be loyal to the brand and want to keep coming back, and then do it locally in every market they're in. So, our GM in California or our GM in Missouri or Oklahoma can create that same kind of environment and collaborate with the right people in that market and do the right events in that market and have the same engagement with the consumer, but make it feel like it's a Missouri brand or an Arizona brand or a California brand in every market. It feels like it's a local brand, even though really, we're trying to create as a national platform.
So one question I actually wanted to ask both of you. So Brian and I actually, believe it or not, have only known each other for a year and a half.
And already besties.
Yes, we're family now.
Yeah.
And but when I met Brian in Arizona, in Phoenix, it was only medical,
Yep.
right? And so since then, obviously, it was right around that time the market turned to rec. And so what have you guys been seeing as far as people who were consuming strictly on the medical side, and obviously some folks had cards, and now that it's fully rec, like what's the overall kind of sentiment around Phoenix? Like,
I'll jump. I go and then you jump in, Kaz. But I think, one thing about Arizona is like our last year as medical, we did $1 billion in revenue. So we were a very gray medical market, i.e., like there was people that had cards. I think 200,000 cards, or 250,000 cards. But there was definitely a bigger market of people that were buying and selling to multiple people with that card. And so we would say like we were rec long before maybe we went rec, and so we had a great business there of a rec type of market without it being fully rec. Obviously, when it went rec, it opened the door to even more users and kind of changed the dynamic. But I think for us, the biggest change that we had to embrace was that we had built such a great following and such a loyal following with the medical consumers in the medical market. And now it opens up to a whole new level of people. Even though we did have a big medical market, it opens a whole new people that don't have brand affinity or loyalty, and we had to really engage them in a whole new way, almost like restarting the wheel. And that's been something we've worked on, because I think a new consumer that doesn't have brand loyalty, obviously the first thing they do is they walk in the bud tender, and the bud tender tells them this is the highest THC for the lowest price, right? And that's not really like a brand, that's just a price per milligram of THC or whatever. And we've had to really re-engage these new consumers and touch them in a different way. I think our brand stance was already a rec brand before we were rec, so it made it easier for us. But I think absolutely you have to really engage a new.
Well, I think too that's a good point. I mean, I think a lot of people across the country, as they are starting to be curious about cannabis and might not have bought it or experienced it in the past.
The kind of curious.
They're kind of curious, but they need to be educated, right? Like what do strains do? What are different strains? How do they affect the body? Different THC content. Like not all weed was created equally, right? So I think that's what a lot of the brands out there like you guys really should be talking to your consumers and educating them, which you probably are. I mean, some people are like, yeah, weed is weed. It's like, no, actually, it's all very different. So
totally.
Kind of like wine, right? There's different wines from different regions and different soils, and obviously the terpenes influence the product as well. So
I think people like when we went the first interaction they have is typically with the bud tender, right? And most bud tenders, they are usually pretty heavy consumers and users of the product, so they have a certain affinity to that. And a lot of times with these new rec consumers, that's not what they start with. That giving them a high dose edible or a high dose, or high THC product is maybe not their best first entry. Like we have a ratio brand, and we've spent a lot of time in this last year. It's called Canary, and training the bud tenders like, hey, the best thing maybe your first time somebody comes in is not to give them the strongest product, because if they have a bad experience, they might not ever want to come back.
Go slow.
Yeah, so kind of work them into it.
Get them using the product and enjoying it and seeing how the different levels react.
Yeah.
So before we go, because I know
I've got some off topic.
you've the conversation.
I was thinking about this. So Josh and I, obviously, being that we grew up together, we both have two boys the same age. We see each other a lot. I've thought about how we're all trying to kind of destigmatize cannabis right now.
Yeah.
And how do you look at like how you're gonna tell your kids as they get older? Is it to the point in your mind like alcohol?
Yeah,
you thought about that at all?
I do, and it's a great question. Yeah, and Brian's boys and our boys are very close friends. They our oldest are best friends and also extremely competitive with each other, so it's a lot of fun to see.
Each other up a lot.
Yeah, but it's interesting because my wife and I talk about all the time when is the right time to tell them. They see our products, they actually like play with our flip cases, because it's kind of fun to play with. But they don't know what it is. They call it a cable connector because that's the easiest thing for them to know.
Do they still think it's a cable connector?
Yeah.
Like a USB connector.
Yeah, so we've taught when is the right time to tell them, because to Brian's point, like it's normal for them to say, hey, it's after work on a Friday, dad's making a drink or mom's pouring a glass of wine.
Right, exactly.
Totally normal, but why is it not normal that dad's works for a company that makes something very similar? And I guess that is like, it's interesting as us in the industry, like what is the right time for us? We would be the most destigmatized, I would think, and still have hesitancy to tell them is an interesting
It's a great question.
I
mean,
feel
what about
like
you?
It's evolving.
Do your kids know what you do?
They don't know specifically, like,
Yeah.
you know, that we're in cannabis. I was, you know, I had an alcohol brand too,
Yeah.
and that went through my mind.
Dad's in technology.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
Dad enables drug dealers to
yeah,
reach more
I've thought about
consumers,
it,
right?
and I think it's going to continue to evolve and become more acceptable as they get older. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to look at it and think about it. So.
Yeah, it's a great thought.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for popping in, and hope you're enjoying the event. I think this is both your first time at Trailblazers.
That's right. Both of us have been to this location with our significant others, but not for this event.
Now you're here working.
Yeah, well,
Working.
yeah, it doesn't feel a lot like work.
I know, it's pretty nice. Yeah. All right, well, guys, stay tuned. We've got more guests coming on, and we'll be back.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good job.